Okay, well, it should be going up anyway. I'll go ahead and get started, and as people come in, if they do, and if this is going live, it's probably best to at least begin. Kind of a weird time of the day. Great. People are here. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know. Another weird time of the day for me, rush hour, kids home from school, everybody getting on the internet. You know how it is. But I wanted to do this now because I'm hoping that a lot of you are watching some of the really important information that's coming out by really good uh, alternative media reporters. I mentioned a lot of them before, just a couple more tonight. Alexander Mercouris, Alex Christoforou, the Duran, the Redacted, uh, Brian Berletic, the New Atlas, of course, David Knight, and I could go on and on and on. But because of Jackson Hinkle's presentation tonight, and I do feel that he is very worthwhile to watch. Nobody gets things 100% right all the time. Sometimes, you don't quite have all the facts, but it's the general tendencies that are really important for you to know. Okay, this is not a video about love, relationships, marriage necessarily. I think there's some very close associations with what I'm going to discuss, but I thought that the title would, first of all, grab people. What's he talking about? I think everybody knows what hypergamy is. Hypergamy is normally associated with women, that women are looking to trade up, looking for a higher socioeconomic level. They'll even bypass looks, even true love, just to get to the next socioeconomic level. It's kind of biological in some regards because they're trying to ensure, on the biological level, the survival of their posterity, their offspring. But unfortunately, it's evolved into something much more dangerous. Well, dangerous is probably the wrong word. Much more illusional in today's world because of media, uh, the expectations that media and the government and commercial people put out there to entice people to spend money or to have money, and not for the right reasons. But believe it or not, I'm not going to really be talking about that situation with the hypergamy in women. I will mention it again here in just a few minutes. But what I'm really talking about is that hypergamy is very evident in the world political structure as well. Those of you who study the Bible know that Revelation talks about the whore of Babylon, and that all of the nations will drink of the wine of the wrath of her will drink of her fornication and take part in it. It's all to do with this buying and selling and all of that, which is another reason why prostitution is so bad. And I did a video on that showing you what the word in Hebrew is for prostitution, and it's bad. It means if you get involved in it, it's just bad. Okay, I'm not talking about regular relationships, trying to figure out if you're compatible and those types of things. I'm talking about actually trading your self-worth, your individuality for money, okay, or for something else with using money. So at any rate, at the beginning of this video, you'll see that I have a picture of some tools. Well, a tool. It was this ratchet wrench here, but notice the size of that wrench right there, how big it is. And I put this up there. This is a small slot, straight slot screw with a hex on it, a hex driver on the top, but at nowhere near can it work in that ratchet wrench. It just won't work. Okay, and I might show you. Oh, well, let's get a screwdriver. That'll work, right? So we're going to use a Phillips head, and we're going to try to use it on this. Well, that's not going to work either, right? Even though you're saying this is a $100,000 screwdriver, it's not going to work on this screw. Or we could use, a punch like this, right? It's still not going to work on our screw. And in desperation, we turn to a set of dikes. This'll work. We'll get it to work. It'll turn this. Oh, yeah, really? Yeah, if you're lucky. What am I showing you here? I'm showing you what the nations of the world, particularly the EU, NATO, and Ukraine, are doing. They've got this problem here. They've got this problem. And the United States, in particular, the United States military industrial intelligence complex, the EU and NATO are sending them a lot of tools, and they're getting you to spend your money on these tools that aren't going to fit together, that aren't going to be able to associate properly on the battlefield. Even though they look nice, they're not going to work. They're not integrated. And in many cases, they just plain damn don't fit the situation. But they're getting you to spend your money, getting people to spill their blood, taking over, they think, the world with their Anglo-American alliance, EU, WEF, United Nations, all of that. And I thought showing you these tools would show you that just because you throw a tool into a problem doesn't mean that it's going to fix it. And in many cases, I just dropped it. And in many cases, you're just going to make it worse, because when you rely on this, when you need something entirely different, you're spending a lot of time and money on this, and then it's not going to work. And that's by design, ladies and gentlemen. I've told you many, many times that these plans were made in the 1800s, and certainly by the first third of the 20th century, to take down liberty, individual freedom, republics, good government, and replace it with autocratic tyranny, whether it be called fascism or communism. You know, a lot of people talk about the on the left you have communism, on the right you have constitutional capitalism, but in reality, what it should be is totalitarianism on this side and total liberty on this side, anarchy really, and that what you want is a government that's somewhere in the middle there, closer to the individual liberty, anarchy side. But that's not what they're giving us. And most of you who are following what's happening, the Davos is starting right now, the WEF is starting up right now, and these people actually sell themselves into that hypergamy. They're in lower, whatever situation they're in, but they want to trade up. And so they're going to trade their liberty and the welfare of their peoples for positions in a hypergamous relationship, looking up, trading up. So it works both in man-woman relationships as far as the definition, and it certainly works on the world stage today. Before I go any further, I talked quite a bit about my wife, Carol, who died in 2008. I talked about her the other night, and I've talked about her quite a bit. And it's to honor her in a lot of ways, because there are very few women in the world that I've met like that. And today it's getting more rare all the time. But I wanted to tell you a story about her before I get into all the rest of this that I'm going to discuss tonight. Just so you, again, know how wonderful she was. I could pull out a picture of her again, but I think most of you already know who she is. Okay. As I told you, she was a hired gun for marketing companies. She would go out and find out the demographics of people that would buy the product, how much they were willing to pay, develop the marketing strategy, the marketing commercial, what to say to people. And she was a great sales lady. She could sell just about anything. Well, she was at a show in Napa, California. I was not there at the time. I think I was overseas, if I'm not mistaken. It was after 9/11. And she was a very popular lady, very pretty, very articulate, very intelligent, shapely as all get out, and just a wonderful woman all around. You couldn't replace her with anybody. Well, she was at this show, and I got this information from the lady that she was working with at the time. They were working this same place, the same spot. And Carol had given several uh, explanations of the product. And this one group that came by was a group of quite distinguished people from the Napa area. And they could tell, but they didn't really know who they were. And after Carol gave this information and the people had a little exchange, they went on, starting to the next booth. Well, one of the men came back. And he basically, to make a long story short, he proposed to Carol. He said, I don't know what your marriage situation is. You've got a ring on, but I have an offer that you may want to consider because I've never seen a woman like you. I can feel that you're different, and I can feel that, there's something really important in you. And so I'd like to propose that whatever your relationship situation is right now, that you just drop it and come with me. And I'll make your life absolutely wonderful. And he gave her his card. I was going to tell you the name of the company that he owned, but I probably shouldn't do that here. I will just tell you that he was the owner and heir of one of the largest wine companies in the world. And she said to him, and again, this was from an eyewitness, she said to him, I'm very honored that you would look at me and consider me, but I'm very happily married to my husband and I would never do anything to hurt him. I want to be with him forever, but thank you very much. Is hypergamy, whether done by women or by nations, something that should be considered not only expected, but necessary? And I'm not going to tell women how to run their lives, but I can tell you something that Bettina told me one day. We were talking about some general information on the phone. Bettina was Nancy Morgan Hart of Headlines with a Voice that a lot of you should probably remember. She died, it's coming up on 2 years this June. But she and I had become very good friends. And we got into a discussion one day, and she told me about some things in her life, which I'm not I can't divulge, of course, that wouldn't be proper. But what she did tell me that I can convey to you is this. She said, women can be bad. They, especially good-looking women, they can trade up to get money and socioeconomic status. Now, she was a looker. She was gorgeous, okay? She lived in California. She was gorgeous, okay? Young, even just before she died, absolutely gorgeous. You can tell by the picture that I put up and that Felicia Lockhart put up about her as well when we did her memorials. But what she said to me was this. She said, Roy, I looked at that and I made the conscious decision to marry for love. Not putting aside the necessity of having the things that you need to take care of yourself and to raise your family, but not to trade that emotional feeling, that love for material goods, because that's always temporary. And some people will say, well, gee, love can be temporary. Well, there are, crests and troughs, that's true. And that's when the bond of love keeps you together even in the rough times. And I know some of this sounds like fairy tale to some people. But what I'm telling you is hypergamy, while it might guarantee the survival of your genes, what's the end result? What do you end up with in the end? Someone will say, well, gee, I divorced this guy after I married up. I left my first husband who didn't have anything, and I was looking to trade up. I mean, my husband was, let's say he was a Pierce Brosnan kind of looking guy, but he didn't have any money. So she wanted to trade up to somebody who had money, even if they didn't look good. And that guy may not even love her, and she may not even love him, but she did it for the money. Eventually, what can happen, and it's more devastating in this situation, is if there's another divorce, of course, the guy loses a lot, right? Or if he was smart and had a prenuptial, she loses a lot. The point is, when you trade your morality, when you trade your basic honor for money, fame, fortune, if you will, you're actually cheating yourself. And then you're hurting a lot of other people along the way. Just so you know, Carol didn't fall for that, okay? I'm not saying the guy wouldn't have been a good husband. I'm saying that she abided by the love that we have between each other. She didn't look for something else to replace it, which would have just been money only. Because she didn't know this guy. I mean, he's a handsome dude, apparently. Probably better looking than me. That'd be kind of hard to do, I think, right? Okay, so let's get back to this other situation. And I wanted to talk about this because of what Alexander Mercouris, who's one of he contributes to the Duran as well as Alex Christoforou, and they're some of the best geopolitical analysts, commentators that you can find today. I've talked to you about them before. You can find them on YouTube. Well, in the description box below is a video that Alexander Mercouris put up today. What I'm really interested in you listening to, I didn't excerpt it out because I think his whole presentation is worthwhile. About halfway through, maybe 3/4, he talks about American diplomats, American officials that admit that in 2014 they wanted to arm Ukraine to go to war with Russia as soon as possible. And I'm not going to explain all the details of that, but the point is that the people of Ukraine, particularly people like, the leaders of Ukraine, a little different than they are now, somewhat the same, but like Zelensky, traded the welfare of his people. He's allowing them to be slaughtered now. They're down to kids on the front line, and soon they're going to start grabbing women, which I've warned about. But they didn't care about the love that they had for their people. All they thought about was trading up and becoming a national leader, or maybe a world leader. You see how that hypergamy works at the national and international level? Trade your honor, your integrity, and your liberty, and the liberty of those that you love, for your comfort and fortune and fame. It happens all the time. So what's happening right now in Ukraine, I think anybody who's watching this, there's a lot of bad stuff on the mainstream media that's just not true, because they want you to keep saying, yeah, we want to give them more money to fight these evil Russians up here. Oh, they're evil. Not telling you the background story about how these guys here, and most of my followers and supporters, subscribers know what that is, that this was all set up. And they're going to do the same thing to China. They're working on that now too, but this is the big one right now, because these people are a lot like us. Well, at any rate, so they're telling the Ukrainians, go do this, and we're going to give you all this military equipment. We're going to send you all of this money, and of course a lot of that's being returned to, through money laundering to Democrats, to billionaires, here in the States and in the EU, to politicians, to corporations, the military-industrial complex, of course. One of the things it does is they can all, the United States and the EU, they can all empty their stocks of their old equipment and then give the bad stuff to Ukraine and then say, look how we're helping you, when they're really not. And then they get to spend that money that they've allocated with these $1.7 trillion omnibus, 40 billion of which is supposed to go to Ukraine. They can give it to the military-industrial complex to design more weapons that are more modern, but don't work, especially don't work the way they claim they do, when we've already seen that. We've seen it a number of times. So at any rate, what's happening is, the reason why I use these tools is because, you might get here's your problem, right? You need to take care of that. You can see it's a slot with a hex right there in the center, right? Hex with a slot, I mean. That's not going to work. You can send them this, but it's not going to fit. So how are you going to integrate this so it fixes this problem? And worse, if I give you this tool, let's say that this is a Bradley fighting vehicle, U.S. made, and this is a Martyr, German made. Or we can talk about air defense systems that aren't integrated, that don't work. You've got this problem, and you're giving them these tools to fix it. And it's not going to happen. And the joke's on Ukraine, although I think Zelensky knows exactly what's going on. And the joke is on the American people and on the European people as well. Rah, rah, rah. Trade up, socioeconomic status, fame, fortune, power. I get to walk out and show off my duds. There's a scripture in Isaiah. Maybe I should read this. Because it's not just about the women of the last days. I said I wasn't going to talk about marriage, or about men, woman, or wife. You know that marriage for me is a whole different thing than what most people think it is today. Marriage to me isn't going down to the state and getting a marriage certificate. That ain't it. But let's read what Isaiah says about it, because this is kind of interesting. Because this fits both the hypergamous situation a lot of women try to use. All right, trade money, or trade their love for money, which again Patina said she wouldn't do, and of course Carol refused to do as well. But let's read what this says here. Listen to this. Now this can apply to either women who engage in this activity. And again, I understand some of the biological reasons, but that's when you got to step back and think, really, what am I doing here? Let's read this. And of course, with nations it works, as I just showed with Ukraine, or I could do it with Afghanistan, what we did in Afghanistan, what we did in Libya, what we did in Guatemala, down here, and many, many other places. This is Isaiah chapter 3. And I'm going to go chapter 3, verses 15 and 16. Actually, I want to read all the way down to 17 and 18. Now, I don't really intend this to be even further than that. I don't intend this to be a scriptural discussion or spiritual discussion, but I want you to say, because I do have problems with the Bible, okay? The extant Bible today, there are problems with it, and I'm fully aware of it, but there's still a lot of good lessons in here that apply to us today, and they certainly apply not only to the hypergamy of women, and some men too, but that's not quite as a common thing. But certainly the hypergamy of the nations, I just told you about in Revelation, where it talks about all those who lay, who lay with the whore of Babylon, right? And we can read that if you like, but I think you know what I'm talking about. That they share in her fornication, and it's all for money and power, right? Listen to what Isaiah says here about these women who are more concerned with these types of things in nations than integrity, honesty, and true love. Chapter 3, I'm going to start at verse 15. What mean ye that ye beat my people to pieces? Are they not doing that right now? Starting these wars, these perpetual wars, which I told you were planned in the 1800s and on, to steal your money and to expend your resources, your blood and your treasure in foreign adventures, but you're the real target to take down because eventually you'll be left with nothing. Didn't WEF say that now? Isn't Mr. Klaus Schwab saying you will own nothing and be happy? That's all part of the same program. Okay, I'll read this without interruption now. What mean ye that ye beat my people to pieces and grind the faces of the poor, saith the Lord God of hosts? Moreover, the Lord saith, because the daughters of Zion are haughty, and walk with stretched forth necks and wanton eyes, haughty and wanton eyes, walking and mincing as they go, and making a tinkling with their feet. Therefore the Lord will smite with a scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion, and the Lord will discover their secret parts. This is happening. This is going to happen to women, but this is also an allegory for what's going to happen to the nations, right? All things will be revealed, right? This is the same thing. In the last days, the apocalypse, the revealing, all the things that are hidden will be known. In that day, the Lord will take away the bravery of their tinkling ornaments about their feet, and their calls, and their round tires like the moon, the chains and the bracelets and the mufflers, the bonnets and the ornaments of the legs and the headbands and the tablets and the earrings. It's talking about luxury, trading love for luxury, trading the love of God or their husband, their true love, for fortune. The rings and nose jewels, the changeable suits of apparel, and the manties, and the wimpies, and the crisping pins, the glasses, and the fine linen, and the hoods, and the veils. And it shall come to pass that instead of sweet smell, there shall be stink, and instead of a girdle, a rent, and instead of well-set hair, baldness, and instead of a stomacher, a girding of sackcloth, and burning instead of beauty. Thy men shall fall by the sword, and thy mighty in the war, and her gates shall lament and mourn, and she, being desolate, shall sit upon the ground. And I'll just add this in. I have to, right? First couple of verses of chapter 4, because so many people find fault with me and those who try to attempt to take care of their women. And in that day 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying, we shall eat our own bread and wear our own apparel. Only let us be called by thy name to take away our reproach. And in that day shall the branch of the Lord be beautiful and glorious, and the fruit of the earth shall be excellent and comely for them that are escaped of Israel. They're having you sell yourselves for the riches that they present to you. Just like Esau came and sold his birthright for a bowl of porridge. And in the sophistication of today, the United States offers all of these tools for this problem. And they charge the nations for these tools. They charge you. They take your money for this. And you're left desolate. That's just what we read. That's just what we read. So shame on anyone. And again, I understand the biological ideas behind women feeling like they have to trade up socioeconomically. But when you go against your vows and when you hurt people's feelings, when you lie for your own benefit, there's a word that goes along with that. Lie when the truth would serve you better. You're going to end up worse in the end. You might think, you've got all these toys and all this money, but at some point, the universe kicks in, and it always does. So, I know I kind of melded those things together, but I think you can see it all is related, and it all correlates, it all corresponds. The explanations of what the nations will suffer and what they do is the macrocosm of what we do on an individual level to each other. And it's not going to bode well for us in the long run, and it's not. The wickedness and evil that's going on here, as I've so long said, what they're doing to your children, they're planning on all these new procedures, right? They also want them to not grow up explaining to them their maturation process, but want to actually change them into their image. So they can get money and power. Not the kids, the people that are pushing these things. And I could go even further. Microcosm, macrocosm. A lot of these nations here, a lot of these nations here, a lot of these nations in the global south are realizing that they need to pull away from Babylon, from the evil that's promulgated by this place. And they're in the process of doing that. Now, there's some things that just happened with Turkey. Turkey had decided that they were going to make this pact with Russia and with Syria. And apparently, I'm not sure if Erdogan was a player in this by NATO to try to take Putin by surprise, or whether Erdogan just got a better deal, or whether this is all part of some other scam. But at this point now, Turkey is again doing military operations in Syria. The bottom line is you can't trust anybody. Yeah, thank you, Jesse. This will be taken down in 1 hour. I mean, it could be a financial collapse. It could be, a nuclear exchange. Who knows? But these guys are going to be the ones that pull it off, right, Jesse? I think that's easy to see at this point. And I can't blame them. I really can't. I don't want to see it, but I know that, at some point it's going to happen, like Jezebel. Jezebel, if you know about the Bible, right, everybody? Beautiful lady, had all of these great things. Thanks, Jesse. Yeah, 10-4. All these great things. She had power, but she still was trying to get up there. She's trying to get rid of Elijah. Oh, Elijah, he's telling me I'm not a good lady. And she gets thrown out of a window and eaten by dogs in the end. So what did it serve her? It would have been better if she had chosen the right. And then if she was martyred, at least it would have been for a good cause, not for her selfishness and evil. I hope you understand the allegory and the symbols I'm trying to show you tonight, and let you know that both in national relations and in relations between each other, especially between men and women, honesty, integrity, and the search for true love, true dedication, following through with your vows, even when they're not convenient, will be a lot better in the long run than what we're seeing these people now cause such destruction and chaos throughout the world. Because destruction and chaos is how the evil gets a foothold and takes control. And I've explained my feelings and my understanding about how these men-woman relationships can work. I'm probably not going to do it again. I don't want to get wound around the axle on those. 30 years in your relationship, very good. There are rough spots, there, and I'm not saying that there aren't grounds for separation, for divorce, and all that. Even though Jesus is saying that, and this is interesting, he's quoted as saying that a man cannot divorce a woman saving for the cause of fornication, because if he does so, he causes her to commit adultery, huh? And he who marries her to commit adultery, huh? See, this shows the difference between fornication and adultery. You really have to understand what's happening there. Because, in fact, Jesus wouldn't expect a woman to stay with a guy who beats her, abuses her, or fails, not by accident, but by choice, not to take care of his family. There are those who make sacrifices in trying to like the founding fathers of the United States of America. They made sacrifices for the larger principles, and many times they lost their families because of it. But it wasn't because that they were deadbeats. They lost their fortunes. And we need to see the difference. Again, Carol told me one thing once. She said, I'd like to tell you a lot of the things that she said, but One of them was, well, you know, Roy, the reason why you're going through all this is because you had the courage. And I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm showing you what a good woman does and what a good nation will do. They won't take the bribes of these bastards over here, these evil ones. They will say, no, we're doing just fine. That doesn't mean that these guys aren't going to set up color revolutions and do all kinds of things to take them down with the CIA, of course. But Carol said, you know, you stuck your head up above everybody else, and so they whacked it off. And there's some truth to that. So I'll just leave it at that. I'd really like all of you to go and listen to Alexander Mercouris's presentation. It's in the description box below. You'll see what the United States did to cause this horrible, horrible war that's going over here, and it's not Russia's fault. It is not. Russia was left with no other alternative. And it's going to come back and bite most everybody here in the rear end and here. And I just hope that the people that engineered all this don't get away, don't get in their bunkers, and I hope they don't survive what they have wrought. A lot of information coming out about the laptop of Biden. Hunter. The situation with the government censoring on social platforms, which is really making the social platforms an agent of the government, which makes them in violation of the First Amendment. There's a court case that was just decided, well, in Texas. The district court judge, said that the bump stock ban was constitutional. That Trump did, the idiot who I loathe. I actually loathe that guy. Pretends to be something he's not. But he put in that bump stock ban. It was then affirmed by the district court judge in a suit. But when it went to the appeals court said, nope. The ATF does not have the constitutional authority to do that. Congress must do it. And now it's on its way on another appeal to the Supreme Court. And we'll see how they deal. Does this mean that I have any trust in the judiciary? No. But it just shows you that our system is broken. We don't have people standing for the right. We have people that are hypergamous, will do anything to make it to the next socioeconomic level. Whether it's a woman who will ditch her lover just so she can marry up, be able to drive a Mercedes-Benz or live in a $2 million house, whatever it is, go to the social circles. And I had a girlfriend once who says, you know, I deserve to sit by the pool all day drinking a martini. Really? She actually said that. One I've talked about before. Way off on the wrong path. Oh, it's real nice at the time, but down the road, you're going to pay a price for that. And unfortunately, with the way the nations do it, a lot of innocent people lose their belongings, lose their property, lose limbs, and even lose their lives. And I pray that God sees all of this and will not let it pass without judgment and revenge. Any questions? Yeah, I'm not sure we're even going to have it. Of course, I was surprised. Well, actually, you know, the midterms, I said that the midterms may not happen, and in fact, they didn't. The show was put on, but they didn't really happen. Sorry about my nose. I shouldn't have done that on camera. I'm still draining. I'm not sick anymore, but I'm still draining. My eyes all better. I think you can see. You know, it's not infected anymore. No, I don't. Who said this? Watchful and alert. No, I don't. I've never done any. I see nothing wrong with marijuana. It's a common weed. They made it illegal because the pharmaceutical companies didn't want competition. I know that. It wasn't because Mexicans were killing white women. That's baloney. But I've never done any drug. Not even prescription drugs. I mean, I've only had prescription drugs when, like when I smashed my thumb. I don't know if you can see that scar right there, but the bone was sticking out, and when I had to have this, anyway, they gave me painkiller for that. A few surgeries I've had, you know, where I had some painkillers after that. I don't take sleeping pills. Matter of fact, the VA tried to give me, and I forget what it was. This was back when I got back from overseas in 2002. The VA tried to give me Amprin, something like that. It was supposed to help me sleep, an anxiety thing. Not really anxiety, mostly for sleep. That's probably not the right one. But it was a big bottle. And I thought, okay, I'll try it. This is the only time I've ever done it. And I tried it, and man, it was, Ambien, yeah, maybe. And I just couldn't do it anymore, you know? And I went back to my doctor, and I took the bottle. There must have been 200 pills in there. I don't know. And I took it into him, and I said, Doc, I can't take this. And he says, you're bringing the pills back? And I said, yeah. He says, man, you're one of a kind. Most of the vets would go out there and sell them on the street for money. Not me. So I've never done that. Okay, never done that. When I played in a band, not the army band that I played. And when I say the army band, the band that I had when I was in the army, we played rock and roll and stuff like that. Okay, but in high school and college, junior high, high school and college, there were members of my band that took everything. I mean, not heroin, I don't think, but LSD, marijuana, of course, and maybe some of those other things. But I never did, and I was called the Rose because of that. My hair was short, kind of like it is now, a little longer, not much. And they called me the Rose. That's kind of funny. Yeah. So I've never done it. As a matter of fact, when I was a police officer, I remember we went into a couple of places. It wasn't a drug bust, but it was, you know, a fight or an attempted murder or something like that. And we went into an apartment, and they had been smoking marijuana in there, and it was thick. I mean, you could cut the air with a knife. And I got a little buzz off of that one just from the second hand. I did. I don't like it. You know, it's hard to control that way. Okay, the token nerd in the band. They knew I wasn't a nerd, but I just wasn't interested in losing my senses, you know, or losing my touch with reality. I wasn't interested in that. Okay. Yeah, I didn't like it, and it may have been Ambien. I think that's what it was, but I can't remember for sure. But they were surprised that I'd returned the pills. Of course, they couldn't re-prescribe them because I had control of them. I'm sure they threw them away, but oh man. Yeah, music relieves stress, and you know, I've told you about, you know, what I do there. You know, I definitely play guitar. You know, this is my Stratocaster, right? That's my Stratocaster right there. I'm not as good as I used to be because with all the injuries I have, I've lost a lot of dexterity. I can only stretch in the lower parts of the the fingerboard. I can only go 3 to 4 frets. So yeah, if we were close by, Jesse, we could get together and play some tunes, right? You have to give me some time though. I'm not a musician. It takes me. I mean, I know my scales and, you know, chords and all that. I've got pretty good timing, but I can't just listen and then play along with a song. I have to sit down and, you know, figure what key it's in and, you know, how I'm going to match up with it. It's not. I mean, some songs I can do that, but I had a girlfriend once I was talking about. It was again after my wife died. I had a girlfriend once, and she knew I played guitar, and she bought her daughter a guitar, and she wanted to hear me play, and she brought it out, and she put on a record, or well, not a record, a CD of some song, and thought that I'd be able to just play like, you know, the exact lead that's in the song, and of course I couldn't. I mean, I don't think I'd even heard the song before. But not being a musician herself or even in music, she couldn't understand why I couldn't do it. And then she said, "Well, you can't play guitar." And she's kind of the one I've talked about a lot. That I thought she was great in one sense, but man, another hypergamous situation, and even worse. Okay, even worse. Dan Spencer, I don't check my DMs anymore, Don, and so everybody knows. I have my reasons for that. I've gotten out of doing any Twitter DMs at all, even private DMs. Uh, um, I don't even check the messages. I only go to the regular Twitter line. And all I can tell you is that there are good reasons for that I really can't explain here, okay? It became a situation where it was, there were people doing fishing expeditions, okay? And I really just can't waste my time on that. A lot of good people on there, and I feel bad. Guy Bouillon, for instance, the journalist from Canada, French Canada, who called me his colleague. He was very kind to say that. Uh, I don't even check there for his information. And just so you know, I don't even do email anymore. It's just gotten to the point where it's just not worth it to me. It really isn't. I appreciate everybody wanting to stay in contact and all that, but if you knew what I was dealing with, you probably would understand. But just trust me on this, okay? Yeah. Let's see. Tony Canera says, I play Fender left precision bass. Singing and playing bass is very hard. Yes. Oh, I play bass a little bit. I'm not. That's not my best instrument, of course, but I can do a little bit. But yeah, singing and doing that, no. Yeah, being like Peter Cetera, or like what's the Rush bass name? Getty. No, I couldn't do what those guys do. Do I have an amp? Yeah, it's a Fender amp. Yeah, Fender amp. I used to have in the band that I had, not when I was in junior high, but when I got into to high school and college, I that's when I bought I had a harmony guitar at first, a little tiny amp, and then I graduated up to a capo Continental guitar and Sun amp. The Sun amp was, the speaker cabinet was as tall as me, and then the amp went on top of that. It was a great concert amplifier, speaker cabinet. And I played on that Capo Continental for a couple of years, and then I went and I bought my Fender Stratocaster, a 68 Fender Stratocaster. And in some of my pictures, I used to get them confused because I tuned them differently so that, like a lot of people will when they're playing for concerts or whatever, or you want a slightly different sound, you'll have a second guitar and the tune slightly different, or maybe it gives a different sound. And so I had those two guitars. And I never had a Fender amp until I bought this Stratocaster here. I always used the Sun amp because in those days it fit with what I needed to do, and it was powerful. You remember, as a matter of fact, in Back to the Future, Marty McFly, one of the scenes is he puts on his sunglasses and he has his guitar and he has his big speaker cabinet and he strums, and the concussion from the speaker blows him across the room. Well, that was almost what I had in this Sun amplifier. It was powerful. Okay, let's see. Roy, why has Russia only lost territory since losing the Battle of Kiev? When you moving to Russia? No. You see, no. Go listen to Mercouris. He'll explain this. They didn't lose the Battle of Kiev. You don't understand what's going on there. Russia moved down as a political move to force Kiev into negotiations. They went to Ankara, Turkey, and they were doing the negotiations, which is what Russia was trying to force. But Johnson from Britain, and of course these bastards over here, told the Ukrainian delegation not to negotiate. But the Russians have moved back from Kiev in good faith. They're not going to make that mistake this time, okay? They're not going to make that mistake this time. In 2015, after the coup in Ukraine that the Victoria Nuland, the State Department, the CIA, and Obama set up and instituted that and installed that coup regime there, which was anti-Russian, which was the whole idea. When they did that, they started that war on the Ukrainians did, the Western Ukrainians out of Kiev started that war on the eastern Donbass to the ethnic Russians that lived there, and we're killing them. Killed 14,000 of them since then, maybe more. Oh, but we never hear about that. We used to. We used to even talk about the Azov Nazis in the mainstream media. You don't hear that anymore because it doesn't fit the current narrative. But at any rate, so the Ukrainian army was attacking the Donbass, and the Russians were in a position to totally wipe them out, totally annihilate them. And then they came out again and said, oh, well, we'll abide by the Minsk agreements, the Minsk Accords. And so Russia pulled back again. They're not going to do it this time. They've learned their lesson. We screwed them twice. We lied to them twice, amongst the other dozens and dozens of times we lied to them. So now I think you need to move to China. Okay? Who's winning the Ukraine war? Again, it depends on who has the, what their agenda is. Depending upon who you listen to. Colonel Douglas McGregor, Major Scott Ritter, Lieutenant Colonel Scott Ritter, I'm not sure which he is, Major Lieutenant Colonel, myself, and those who are willing to tell you what they actually see on the battlefields and what's going on diplomatically. And this little allegory I gave you here just a few minutes ago, Russia's going to kick ass. And I've said that from the start. Merely because they've been trying to hold back to give certain people a chance to do these negotiations, and they failed. They don't want to kill Ukrainians. Ukrainians are their people, by and large. They don't want to do this. They've been pushed into it. They've built up defensive lines because they know NATO might try to do a larger operation against them. They're really at war with NATO and the United States. They really are. You can't send weapons to a country like Ukraine, the United States and the European Union doing this, and not really be at war with the country that's fighting Ukraine, in this case, Russia. We're at war, and we've been at war for a long time, and unjustifiably so. So they've built these, Surovikin, the overall commander. By the way, one of the reasons why some of the things happened early on in the special military operation, where the Russians didn't seem to be moving the way they wanted to, was because each of the republics, the separate republics, Lugansk, Donetsk, etc., because of legal situations, they couldn't have one overall commander for the entire special military operation. Each area was controlled by its own commander. When all of this happened and they saw what the West was really up to, last summer and early fall, then they made Surovikin the overall commander for the entire Ukrainian conflict. Now they have unity of command. They have a single commander who has his commander's concept of the operation, and has everybody following it, not 3 or 4 different ones. They're building up those defensive areas in the Donbass in case NATO thinks that they're going to try something, which they shouldn't, because again, the Russians know what the hell they're doing. They're not Afghanis. They're not Afghanis. They're not the Taliban. They're not even Iraqis. They're not even Iranians, although the Iranian army is actually pretty good. This is a first world military power, both conventionally and nuclear. But you see, the people doing this, as I've said here and here, they want to reduce the Earth's population anyway. So to them, it's a win-win situation. No matter what happens, as long as they survive it. Don't you get it? So you better stop pulling for these idiots here and Zelensky. No, you're getting sucked into the wrong side. So what's going to happen is Surovikin's got his defensive line, He's got his fires prepared. He's a combined arms commander. He knows how to use all the different military forces in a combined corresponding action. And he's got his, when he does this offensive, he'll have the protection of his defensive line behind him so that they can't sneak around and do something. And he is going to rip through Ukraine, destroying everything in his path. Everything. And I really can't blame him. I just hope the good people of Ukraine see what their government's done to them and get the hell out of there. What? Sorry about this. Russia doesn't think that the salt must flow. I'm not sure I know what you mean by that. Mars Gold. Yeah, it's in my book. My journal. The book that, my autobiography. I'll put it up here right now. Both pictures, actually. This is my band in junior high and college. That's me right there. Okay. And again, I one time said this was my Stratocaster. It is not. It is my Continental Capo. The Continental was a local guitar company in Maryland. They made custom guitars. It was actually very good. It was as good as my Stratocaster, actually. But I got the Stratocaster because of the sound and the, I guess I was a little vain, you know. And then, when I was in the Army, we started another band, and this is it here. Okay, and that's me right there in the leather coat. This guy here, by the way, he was a captain in the Massachusetts National Guard, as I recall, and he had been one of the lead guitarists for Sly and the Family Stone. And you can't see the drummer or the bassist very well. The bassist is back behind him and the drummer here. And these are our vocals here. And I did some vocals as well. So that's it. A lot of fun. I can honestly say that I don't think I've done anything as fun. Well, that's not true. Playing music's fun, especially when you have an audience that appreciates it and responds to you, and then it makes you do even better. Kind of like good sex, you know what I mean? That's interesting. Jesse, for those of you who know what he's talking about, I have played with singers that sing a half step down from a 440. It is easier. Yeah. You know, anybody can sing vocals as long as you have the kind of music that your voice fits, or vice versa, right? I couldn't sing no matter what now. I probably sound like, it's probably, I probably wouldn't even sound that good, but kind of like Bob Dylan, or maybe Knopfler of Dire Straits. I'd probably sound like that. But their music fit them, right? Yeah, so you could do that. Wow, really? Nevek Nosmade says Michael J. Fox was in his drama class in high school. Wow, that must have been something. A PV 200 watt amp, Tony? Yeah. Oh, no, that's good. PV's a good company. Oh, no, they're great. Oh, I see. Yeah, that's what they were talking about. I missed the idea of the salt shaker. Yeah, Russia has taken most of the salt mines except Mine 7. Ukraine is now southern Russia. Yeah, that's what that salt shaker was. Exactly. I'm sorry I missed that. Yeah, the salt mines are one of the reasons why Bakhmut was so important to the Ukrainians, even though they said it wasn't, is because they've run a lot of their operations out of there and a lot of their logistics. Yeah. So yeah, the salt mines, Once the Russians get those, they'll be ready to move on to Kramatorsk, and will be able to go to Kyiv if they want to. I don't think they'll actually do that. They're not really interested in that. Oh, that personal letter? Nah. What's happening here? Sandy Aaron's asking me why she thinks that Trump sent me that personal letter. I had a lot of hope in Trump at first, and I was giving a lot of information about him, trying to support him. And then when he started doing the crap that he did, he had already sent me the letter. But I think if he had it all to do over again, he'd never sent it. Well, I don't blame you, Tammy Keller. Pay attention to Ukraine. You just want us to stop giving them money. Yeah, but you have to understand why we're giving them money. That's why you need to understand what's going on in Ukraine. Again, this whole Ukraine thing isn't just to take down Russia, although the neocons would like to do that. It's to take you down, which they're doing very well. You couldn't even pay back the debt right now. Your grandchildren couldn't. Your great-great-grandchildren can't. They're going to come and take your property, just like they did at Bundy Ranch, or tried to do at Bundy Ranch, which is why I was there in Nevada. If you don't know what that is, go to the playlist below and look at the Bundy Ranch series. You'll see what I'm talking about. Yeah, no, the political prisoners in jail from January 6th, unjust, unconstitutional. They're not terrorists by any definition of what the word should be. This is a rogue, illegal, criminal federal government um, mistreating its citizens illegally. And what's happening down here in Brazil, you can see that the same people that orchestrated and provocateured the situation on January 6th, they're pulling the same thing in Brasilia. Same program. Same program. You have to understand how these bastards set people up. One of the things they do, yeah, Russia has moved the zircons into the Atlantic. That's right, BP. Uh, what the feds do is they frame you. And I'm going to explain this kind of in general terms. Some of you will understand what I'm talking about, others won't. You'll have a guy over here who is telling you about all the stuff that's happening in the government. Okay? Being alternative media or whatever. He's over here exposing all these things that's happening in the government. He may have even been getting in trouble with the government from time to time. All right? Then you have these agents that appear to be harassing him and to causing him trouble. So that gives him verification to his audience. But what they're really doing is they're working together to put you into an untenable position where they can then come and haul your ass away. Be very careful. Be very, very careful. It's not what it appears 90% of the time. Yeah, the salt mines. Yeah, that's where the big battle and what this whole thing in Bakhmut's going to be about. Oh, there are probably more than 400 Ukrainians in the salt mines. I'll bet you there's a lot more than that. That you could probably move the decimal point quite a few ways to the right. If Bob Dylan can do it, I can do it. Remember who he said he made a deal with the manager of this world, or however he put that? I've never done that. No plan on doing it either. Lee Marvin couldn't. Brothers in Arms is a good jam. Yeah, that was a Knopfler was a fantastic guitar player, and of course another on a different type of music is Joe Bonamassa. Wow, whoa, fantastic guitar player. Yeah, Dylan probably didn't write them. We won't go there, but there's a possibility of that. Trump is Janus. In his mind, he thinks, hey, thank you, April. Yeah, Janus or Apollo. He thinks he's Apollo. He thinks he's the chosen one. But right now, he's getting his ass handed to him in a lot of ways. I'm not saying he can't rise. I don't trust, he and Netanyahu have some kind of a thing going on together, and so I'm still watching that pretty close. Yeah, they live. Yeah, wasn't that a true story? Yes, rest in peace, Lavoy Finicum. Good man, good man. And they killed him the way they did Randy Weaver's family and the people at Waco. Same group did it. Oh boy, I'm running out of power. Sandy Aaron, yeah, I understand about those antenna. They're actually everywhere. You have to understand something about Salt Lake City. First of all, it's a trafficking crossroads. Just leave it at that. Second of all, Camp Williams, which is at the point of the mountain, which is south of Salt Lake, um, it's actually up in the mountain there is the sister facility to Cheyenne Mountain, NORAD. Okay, if you understand that. Plus NSA, the big NSA facility is right there. Plus you got Tooele Army Depot with the chemical biological weapons there and in Dugway. Dugway is the new Area 51. A lot of bad things in Utah. Lots of bad things. Okay, I've been here for an hour and 10 minutes. Oh my goodness. So I'll let you go. That's long enough. I don't want to lose my voice either. Again, thanks for coming. I hope you understand the analogies, the allegories I made tonight. They really do fit. Even if you give everybody a lot of tools, if they don't integrate and work together or fit the problem, all you're doing is wasting money. And they're doing it on purpose. Okay? They're doing it on purpose. Alexander McCurris in the description box, about an hour video, very worth your while. He'll explain some speeches that were given by a general officer, one general officer, U.S. general officer, and some other people about what they really did plan on Ukraine, and that Russia didn't start this fight in this last a year ago in February. This fight was started in 2014, okay, by the United States Department of State, CIA, Obama, military industrial complex. And right now they're even saying that the DOD may have actually been, as Trump said, it was interesting, he said, we're going to use the military, right? We're gonna have the military put out this OWS. And it's starting to look like now that the DOD had their hands on it from the beginning. And why? To control people. Your Department of Defense is not your friend. Haven't been for a long time. All right, I'm going to go maybe play a little guitar, and maybe I'll have a little scotch too. It's about that time of day, right? All right. Thank you for coming, and keep your eyes on the horizon, your ears to the ground, situational awareness on high. Prep, pray, and stay out of the way. All righty? I'll wait and see you till next time. Out here.